He's gonna get. He's gonna fight me. He's a big Viking. He thinks he's awesome.
Hey everybody, this is me, the Undead Viking. I'm here to talk to you about a brand new game called Ashes to Ashes. I do apologize. The game I got was a complete prototype, so I don't have a box to show you right now, which I'm unfortunately, the guy upstairs won't be able to drop it down into my hands like he always does. But I'm going to talk to you about this game. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. It is at its heart a two-player game. Now, I know well, I should say a 2 or 3-player game. If you go to the game's webpage or you go to the game's Kickstarter page, you're going to see on there that they're going to list off 2, 4, 6, or 3, like basically 2 to 6 people. And when you play with 3 or 5 people, there is a third faction, the Secret Society faction, that has some separate powers that kind of works behind in the weeds and doesn't really have the same goal at all what the other 2 factions have. And then when you play 2, 4, or 6, what it is basically then you have a team game. Now, sometimes this works really well in these games. Like this game, for example. If you have 4 people sitting at a table, those 2 people can discuss strategies and ideas and how they want to do certain actions or whatever, and those 2 teams can work against each other to do that. Some games, when they do that, which are really, really good games, it just always feels like that's shoehorned in. War of the Ring, I'm looking directly at you. War of the Ring is a fantastic game that people say is for up to 4 people, but it's not a 4-player game. It is a 2-player game. It is a really, really huge and expansive 2-player game, but that game really doesn't come across as a 4-player game to me. Regardless, where I'm going with this is the fact that this is a game where each side has a faction, whether you're the humans or the vampires. And there is this mystical little girl, and they don't really say what exactly her mystical ability is, but both the humans and the vampires want this little girl for whatever purpose they have. Humans, hopefully, is to save the world. Vampires may be something even more horrible. Or maybe they want to save the world, too, from the horrible, horrible humans. There's 2 sides to every story. But regardless, the whole goal is that you are going to be making different pathways, setting up these different pathways and basically kind of mazes in a way, beset with traps and different things that are going to move your characters along the board to attempt to intersect with this girl as she's trying to make her way from one side of the board to the other to escape. And not only are you wanting to grab her, but you're wanting to drag her back to your home base. And if you're able to do that in the time that the game gives you, which isn't a ton of time, then what's going to happen is that then your particular faction is going to win. You can either win by capturing that girl, or you can win the game by destroying the other faction. Each faction will have a certain amount of health points or faction points, and if you can manage to get those down to 0, then you will win because there's nothing left to oppose you. Alright, so the game has a lot going on. It is a surprisingly fast game to play. I'll talk more about that in just a little bit. And then we'll come back here and I'll give you my final thoughts. So let's show you Ashes to Ashes. Alright, so this is Ashes to Ashes, and like I said, at its heart, this is a 2-player or a 3-player game. And what I'm going to do here is I'm kind of going to go over the 2-player version of this, and the 2-player version works like the 4 or 6, it's just a situation where you're not going to have a team. I will touch on the 3 or 5-player version of it, probably in my final thoughts, and talk about the Secret Society at that point. But right now, let me just show you exactly what you're looking at. So to begin with, the game has 2 distinct sides to the board. It has the human side, which is this side, and it has the vampire side, which is this side. The whole goal of the game is that there is this character, and this is the little girl, and that's just kind of like this little enigma. This little girl will slowly make her way across the board, one step by one step, until she reaches over here. If she reaches this location, at that point, the game is over and nobody wins. And that's like in a 2-player game. Well, technically, the Secret Society wins, but in a 2-player or 4-player or 6-player game, the Secret Society is just kind of a non-player character type of thing. But if you're playing a 3 or a 5-player game, the Secret Society, their whole goal is to allow the girl to make it all the way across without being captured. both the humans and the vampires, what they want to do is they want to have one of their characters end up in the same spot as the girl, capture her, and bring them back to their location. If they're able to do that, they will win the game. You can also win the game if you manage to reduce the faction points, the power level of the opponents from 20 all the way down to 0. If you can do that by attacking them and getting them into situations where they're losing those points, you will be able to win the game as well. Now you might notice there are these 3 figures over here. Those are the 3 different vampires you'll be running, and humans. So, I mean, these 3 are the humans, those 3 are the vampires. Those are the 3 that you have. You're also going to have kind of like the there's 3 creatures that are behind the scenes, if you will, and they're represented by these tokens, and they're also represented on the player boards on this side. And you'll notice that there are these large squares there that denote the power of those particular characters that are working behind the scenes. What you're going to be doing is these power levels are going to fluctuate up and down, and they will allow you to do different actions that will allow you to get more cards into your hand, that will allow you to move your portals around, and so on and so forth. The portals show up, and they have both like a light side like this, and they have a dark side like this. As you might have guessed, now these don't teleport you in any way. What they are is they're more like a trap. If you can somehow force an opponent's character to go through a portal, that would be negative. So like this is like if you try to go through, if you're human and you try to go through the dark side, you're going to lose 2 points of damage off your faction strength. And you know, whereas if on the good side, if you are a vampire and you try to go through that, you will take that damage as well. And the way the board's set up is that they're in these starting locations when the game begins, but those can be changed and altered and moved around the board to assist you as you go. Now the big thing is that as you're going to be taking actions, is you're going to be placing these tiles down. They're either going to have a straight or they're going to have a turn like so. And as you place these, what you're going to do is you're going to build little pathways like this that are going to allow you to move your characters, you know, to different spots on the board. Now the big thing is that there's a couple of different spots on the board that you can't really place any of these particular tokens down. You can't place them on these 4-ways. Those are like, those 4-way locations are always going to be there. And as you can probably guess, those are prime spots for placing portals because of the fact that you're going to, you know, possible to get stuck and not be able to go through them. To this center diagonal strip, the one where the girl follows that path across, you don't ever place one on there. The way it works is that you would, if you wanted to actually like if I wanted to travel down this path and cross, there would have to be a continuation on the other end, like so. And the continuation could very well be like this as well. That would be perfectly valid as well. However, a continuation like that would not allow me to cross that path. All right, so this is a little bit, I haven't really gotten into the actions or anything. I just want to give you kind of the basic idea of the mechanisms that you're going to be doing. What happens as the game has progressed is that the first part of the action is going to be you're going to be placing tokens like this into different spots on the board as actions. These actions are either going to be over here, and you have to place like the actual token, the one that represents the spot on the board. So like you see that spot right there, and that would be her token. And like, so you can't place like her token like there or on one of these vampire spots. You would have to place it in that location there. When you take that action, like this is just to power up the character. You would increase their power by 1 when you do that. I mean, that's just and usually you're only going to be doing that if you have a situation where you run out of power and you want them to take actions for you. Over here and over there, you're going to see these different marketplaces. There are 3 upgrade cards. There is also the standard cards, and those are going to be cards you're going to have in your hand at the end of every turn. You're going to draw back up to your hand of 3. I haven't drawn those yet. I'll show that when I do those actions. But you can get upgrade cards that will have actions that you're going to be able to take, and they're going to augment your ability as you're moving about the board. But they're also, the upgrade cards can be used as a resource as well, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit. When you want to take one of these, your action would be just to place it on one of the marketplace spots. You would then take that card and put that card into your hand. All upgrades cost you 1 power. So if I placed that this character to take that upgrade card, I would reduce that power by 1 in order to do that. Pretty straightforward. There are also other action places up here. One of these allows you to transport one of your portals from your side over to the other side. You can place it wherever you like. However, you can't place it alongside the edge like so. You can't do any of those. And you can't place it in a location that is right next to another character. That is not allowed. For a cost of 3 power, and that's 3 power over here, not faction power. You can draw 1 extra action card into your hand for your use. Also, for the cost of for a cost of an upgrade card, I apologize. For actually, if you had an upgrade card in your hand, you could discard the upgrade card, and you would be allowed to take an existing spot as long as there wasn't a miniature on it. If there's a miniature on it, you can't do anything with it. But as long as there's not a miniature on it, you're allowed to remove a location that has a spot. Or, if you'd rather, you can just replace it with what's on the opposite side, and you can orient it as you like. So those are the things you can do with those particular actions. Now, and it's kind of like a worker placement function. You're just going to be placing these discs onto those different locations, and the vampires have those discs as well, and they'll place those on there to build up. And it's kind of like, as I said, it's like this weird kind of like the factions behind the power, if you will, like kind of fueling the ground troops, the miniatures that are going to actually be doing the dirty work and moving about the board trying to capture this little girl. All right, so that's that section of the turn. Now moving on to the actual action section of the turn, I'm going to draw 3 cards just so you can kind of see some of these cards and see what they do here. And I'm just doing the human side. The human and vampire side are pretty symmetrical. They are slightly different in some ways as far as different powers and whatever. But for the most part, the actions they take are pretty standard. All right, so I actually drew 1 of each of the 3 different characters that I have on the board. This priest, the scientist guy, and then the military policeman, if you will. Let me just actually dig through here so I can find a generic card so you can see that for you. All right, here. I'll grab these 2. There's also some cards that have like these generic things as well. And you'll notice that like in these, basically this says you can do either or, and this one just basically tells you that. As you can probably guess, these cards are used to just place these particular pathways onto the board as you see fit. And those are kind of like a wild, but they aren't as powerful as like some of the other cards. Like, here you have here's this priest, and it allows you to place either or. And the big difference between these, when you have these cards, is that you have to place them in a spot next to that particular character. Now, the interesting thing is that when you complete a pathway, so let's, and this is a little bit of a cheat here, because this probably wouldn't happen. But if I had this character there, and I think I do have that, my policeman character here, so, of course it's not the right kind. See, this would be the wrong thing, because it's a turn. But let's just, for the sake of our demonstration here, let's say that isn't a turn, and it is, or I could just dig through and find one that has the correct one. Here, let me find it for you. Here we go. So let's just cheat here and say I had this card, and I wanted to, as an action, place that so I could place this particular spot down. Now, movement is not voluntary. Once you have a path that your particular character can take, you have to take that movement, and you would go and you would follow that until the point where it stopped, like so. Now, there are a couple things that can happen when that does. Now, if you had a situation where you're at this 4-way and you have, maybe like this different path for whatever reason, and I'm just you can make the choice to go the different way. And the person that is moving the character, even if the opponent player has completed that pathway for them, gets to choose where they go. You can't forcibly, so let's say, and this was set up in a way that it would be negative points if I went this way. And followed the pathway like so, because I'm trying to set it up. It's wobbling for me here right now, but that's the dark path, and we had paid the vampire player to do it. He couldn't say, okay, you're going to go through that portal and you're going to lose 2 points. That doesn't work like that. I could choose to follow this pathway instead. So the person who owns the miniature gets to choose. Once you get done moving, you move as far as the track goes, and then it's over. Now, the other thing is that if you are in a situation where there's two miniatures, unless it's the girl, cannot be in the same place at the same time. I can't have two of my same miniatures in the same spot. And if there is another miniature of an opposing faction blocking my way, at this point, then an actual attack can occur. And this is how you're going to mostly be reducing the faction points of the opponent's player. So what happens is that when you do an attack, what you will do is, let's say this vampire, here, I'll put him, once again, I'm kind of making this how I want it to be. But let's say we had a situation like this, and on the vampire turn, the vampire placed this particular movement, and so he moves up and he would attack that particular character. Now, what happens with an attack is that each board kind of has like this little faction chart, and what you're doing is you're going to compare the two miniatures, or basically the two characters, and you're going to see what kind of defense that particular person is going to need to be able to defend against that particular attack. And then the damage of the attack is down here, 1, 2, or 3 points of damage, and so that it would increase. So what we have is he's like this gunman or highwayman character. That's this one, and I think, is this my police officer? Yeah, that's my police officer. So right here and here. And you can see, you faction them together, and you can see there's this book there. It might be a little tough to see there, but you can see there's this imprint of a book. Now, in these particular, you're going to look, and let me just find a character card here. So, like, if you have, and of course now I'm having trouble finding because I probably just, oh, here we go. So then, like, here we have this particular, the card here, and then notice down here he has that book right there. So I could, if I had this card in my hand, I could reveal that, and then I would be able to defend myself against that attack, and it would do no damage to me. So you do have an ability. It isn't just one of those things where if things happen to match up perfectly and those particular cards like run into each other exactly, then there's nothing you can do, if that makes sense, right? All right, cool. So now the big thing is how does the girl move? Well, the thing is, after the end of each turn, and it isn't just like I go and you go kind of thing. After the end of each turn, the girl just starts moving space by space by space by space through the middle of the board, and your whole goal is to try to set up a path that will intersect with the girl and allow you to take her. And so, like, if you have a situation, and you can, sometimes you can get blocked, like, let's say if there was a vampire here, and, once again, let's just build a little pathway, so I have one. You can get hung up on the spot. It isn't like that's like a big electricity field and you can't go through it. It's just you have to actually set it up to actually go through. But like in a situation like that where you wouldn't be able to do it. Now, if the girl ends up in the same spot as you, because at the end of the turn she moves into you, you automatically capture her. If the girl happens to, like, just, because of the fact that maybe she was taken and then a successful attack, forced them to drop it or what have you, the girl can get left on other spots as well, and you can move onto the girl to take her. But regardless, just basically you have to be able to grab the girl. At that point now, you can start, working your way back and try to get the girl back to your home spot, and then you can pull off the win. As I said, if there is a successful attack upon the other player, that particular character loses control of the girl and doesn't get to, and then the girl then would no longer be controlled by that faction. At the end of each turn, however, there is one other thing. You do a Secret Society action. Remember I said they're kind of a non-player character group. The Secret Society deck will have, and don't worry about this bottom part because that's if you're actually running the Secret Society as a third faction. You're going to have these numbers. You're going to have like a 1 and a 4. And what will happen is that, and it's kind of difficult to see because the numbers are kind of small. There's like 7 and 8 here, and a 5 and 6 there, and a 3 and 4 there, and so on and so forth. But when this happens is that the Secret Society figures will end up on the board. They'll go to the first number first, and they'll go to the second number next. And And they'll kind of bounce around. And if you have a situation where, and I'm once again going to cheat a little bit, if you have a situation where you are going to replace a Secret Society member next to any of the other faction members, any faction member that's close to a Secret Society member, when they get placed onto the board, automatically takes 1 point of faction damage. Now, important to note about faction damage is that once you lose it, you lose it. You can't get it back. So you start with 20 points, and that is slowly going to be decreased. So anytime you are forced to go through a doorway the wrong way, a Secret Society member does damage, or a successful attack occurs on your faction, you're inching ever closer to the possibility of losing, because if you lose all your hit points, then the other, or faction points I should say, the other player will win the game. So just keep that in mind, that it is kind of a zero-sum situation where you never, ever get it back, and those points that you lose you can't like drain them from the opponent player or whatever. For a game that has this much going on as far as the different movements and as far as the different placements and the turns are snap, 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 which is something that I really, really like. It is in a situation where you're going to be taking like multiple actions in a row because of the fact that you're flip-flopping back. It's a you go, I go type of game. That person goes, then I go, and so on and so forth. When I read the rules for the very first time, I was like, wow, this game's got a lot going on, and this is pretty complex. But then I saw it said a 45-minute game time, and I was like, no way. And I was like, the first time I played this, my daughter and I played, and we got done with it with rules explanation under an hour. And I was like, and she won, and she managed to sneak, her vampire group managed to sneak the girl back for whatever nefarious purpose they had. And after that, after we had learned the game, we were coming in under that 45 minutes every single time, something that we had a lot of fun with. But there's a lot more to this game. I'm going to talk about that third faction and what they do in my final thoughts, and I'm going to also just tell you why I think if you are a two-player game fan, this might be something you're absolutely positively going to want to have on your shelf. Oh yeah. All right, so there you go. I wasn't going to show you a full game, and there's some stuff going on that I didn't show you, like the Secret Society card. So if you have a third or a fifth player, you're going to have a Secret Society player. Basically, obviously, that extra player in a two-player game will be the Secret Society player, and the extra player in a four-player game, will be that the fifth person will be the fifth wheel, right? They'll be the Secret Society player. The Secret Society player will draw those cards, and they will be able to, remember I showed you there was those different actions that were at the bottom. They will be able to enact those different actions by placing traps and other mishaps that are going to actually prevent the other players from attaining their goals and being able to grab that particular girl and drag her back. Remember, the Secret Society wins if they can manage to get the girl from all the way from one side to the other, and there's a way that they can process that and get it across. Now, I did play one three-player game, and I thought it really added a lot of interesting aspects to it. As far as just another mind, I guess, is a good way to put it. Another actively thinking, plotting, cavorting mind that is working against me, which was a nice little breath of fresh air. I wish I had had more time to play that way more, but the one play I did do with the third player, I enjoyed a great deal, and I thought we had a great deal of fun with it. There is also a solo game that is going to be included in the box. I did not get to play the solo game, so I don't know anything about that, but though if it is as good, or if it comes anywhere close as good as the two-player experience with this one, then I think it's going to be a winner. As I've said, my number one game-playing buddy in the world right now is my daughter, and we play a lot of games two-player, and so I'm really excited whenever I get a game like this that focuses on that two-player interaction. Now, I say that with the caveat that when you go to a four-player or a six-player game, which I did play once as six players, and that did add some time to the game time. Whenever you add more cooks to the stew, right, it's just going to be a little bit more time going on. But it was kind of fun having those three people, the two people on your side, trying to figure things out together. I found that the two-player experience is a little bit different, obviously, because it's just you matching with the person across the table. But I didn't find it to be distracting, or I didn't find it to be oh great, I got to play this game with another person. I'd much rather play by myself, which a lot of times in other games that are supposedly 4-player but are really 2-player games, I don't experience that. I just want to be able to play the game by myself against one person and just kind of match wits with that person. Now, as far as like the theme of the game goes, the theme's awesome. I mean, I dig the kind of like weird Victorian theme. I've always been a big fan of the old novel Dracula. Dracula's Fury and all of its iterations was a game that I have and continue to have a great deal of fun playing. I just, the horror gothic theme is something that I enjoy. I will say that I think that once I get the final miniatures, because the miniatures that I got with the game are not like the quality that they're going to be printing. This is a company that actually did a very, very good job with a game that I reviewed last year called Faceless, which was a very dark, very grim game. And this is also, once again, a very dark, very grim game. I really like what they're doing, Alter Ego. I really think what they're doing right now is fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what those miniatures are going to look like and how that's going to just be the presence on the table. Keep in mind, like I had some trouble with the portals, getting them to stand up when I was showing you how to play the game. That is not, I mean, that's obviously they're going to fix that. I mean, once again, this is a prototype that I was sent. While it has fantastic art and the game plays just perfectly, perhaps the components, the prototype components didn't match up well with what you're going to get when the game is published. Ultimately, if you like gothic horror, if you like the whole vampires versus humans thing, if you like planned movement and being able to try to outthink your opponent in a head-to-head kind of thing, I think you're really, really going to enjoy this one. I think this is definitely worth checking out, and if you have any questions about it, about the gameplay or anything else, I'd be happy to answer any and all questions you have. As always, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. I really appreciate you taking the time to do so. If you have a chance to go ahead and hit the old like button or subscribe or share. You know what, you're not going to share it. Who cares? Just, you know what? Thank you. Thank you for taking the time. Be the best person that you possibly can be in every single day of your life. Trust me, the last week or so I've had a tough one. And it's been tough for me to grit my teeth and just concentrate on being positive and moving forward with my life. And you know what? Every single day is a gift and a challenge and a big giant present wrapped up in a bow, and you never know what you're going to get. But if you concentrate on giving out more love to the universe, and I guarantee you, if you concentrate on doing that, you'll get more love coming back. So until next time, I'm the Untitled Viking. Thank you very much. You're awesome.